Okay guys, this is going to finish up imperialism. Some of this is a little bit of a repeat from what you previously did, but it's important stuff. So remember, big stick diplomacy stresses military might, and part of that big stick show-off is the Great White Fleet, those newest battleships, and he sends it around the world to remind the rest of the world of the power of the United States. He also issues the Roosevelt Corollary, which is in addition to the Monroe Doctrine, the United States becomes the policeman of our hemisphere. So this is a very famous cartoon. He's easily identified. There's Theodore Roosevelt with his foreign policy, the diplomacy. If you recall, he was the Assistant Secretary of the Navy, and during the Spanish-American War, when we were in Cuba, he sent his ships to blockade Cuba. And he was very frustrated. They had to go all the way around. They were in California and all the way around South America. So Theodore Roosevelt was obsessed with the idea of a shortcut between the Atlantic and the Pacific. And that is going to lead to the Panama Canal. So you can see the Panama Canal across the Isthmus of Panama would cut 8,000 miles off the journey of a ship going from the Atlantic to the Pacific. The French had tried to dig a canal in Panama and failed, so they actually we were looking at maybe going through Nicaragua. Nicaragua has a very large lake, Lake Nicaragua, and it's a little bit flatter. But ultimately they decide on Panama because it's just so much shorter across. So Roosevelt wants to negotiate. Panama is actually part of Colombia, and the Colombians are not interested. He offers them a lot of money, okay, $40 million, and Colombia just says no, they will not sell. Well, Roosevelt is determined. So how can he get this land if Colombia won't sell it to him? His solution was, let's create a new nation. So he is going to support a Panamanian revolution. He's going to send down some support with his Great White Fleet, and this is going to be a very short revolution, about 24 hours, and the Republic of Panama is created. Of course, this cartoon, yes, if you said it was actually a puppet nation of the United States, controlled by the United States, you would be correct. So, recapping it, Colombia wouldn't sell. They considered Nicaragua, but it's too long. Roosevelt encourages a revolution. We send backup. Panama rebels and declares its independence in November of 1903, a 24-hour revolution. We buy control of the canal zone for $10 million from this new government. When we start construction, it is a huge job, and it is engineering, natural miracle, really. We're going to go through mountains. It's going to be mostly a gravity system with a system of locks, and new equipment is going to have to be created to get workers from the islands. Yellow fever needs to be conquered in order for this to be successful. And this was a stage. Carlos Finlay had identified the mosquito of the carriers of the disease, and then Walter Reed, during the next Spanish-American War, actually came up with a theory on how to control this, and then William Gorgas is going to go down to Panama, and he was the chief sanitary officer in the canal zone, and his mission, his job, was to control the mosquito population, to keep the disease down and allow completion. He's going to come up with ways to do this. He has this, what he calls a fumigation car, and that is actually sprinkling a light layer of oil on top of any standing water, and that keeps the larva of the mosquito from developing. Also, you can see here they're screened in. They will quarantine any yellow fever victims. They're going to try and remove any standing water because that, of course, is where the larva is growing. Theodore Roosevelt will become the first president to travel outside the United States as president, and you can see him here in this huge piece of equipment on the left, and he is traveling there. He is in his Panama suit. When he's there, he sees all this equipment that had been left behind by the French when they had failed. And so he instructed them to gather up all the equipment, melt it down, and he had these medals made up for the people who were working on the Panama Canal. And you can see it's got his picture on one side. It has a number of years they work, and then they would be numbered. This is an example of one of the locks. You can see how large it is. You can see these people standing at the bottom, and if you've ever gone on the Red River, they have locks on the Red River, not near this big, but basically they close them, let the water rise. When they open them on the other side, the boat just floats right out. So this is the location, and it's actually going to connect with a large lake in the middle and goes through at this isthmus. So 42 miles of channel construction, 6 locks, and stretches 51 miles across the Isthmus of Panama. Again, you can see what a huge deal this was. They're going to go through mountains, and it opens ultimately August 15th, 1914. When Jimmy Carter was president, he decides that he is going to give the Panama Canal back to Panama. This was a very controversial decision, but he signs this, and on December 31st, 1999, the Panama Canal becomes the property of Panama. Remember the speak softly and carry a big stick, you will go far. It's a West Indian African proverb, and Theodore Roosevelt, this was his mantra with his big stick diplomacy. As far as our hemisphere is concerned, remember we have a corollary now to the Monroe Doctrine, and we are going to establish control over some of the Central American countries, economic control, and of course the big stick is right there. These countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, are going to be called the Banana Republics. And you can see a banana republic. It's actually the United Fruit Company was the company that controlled production of the banana crops in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. So America controlled the economics, and the threat of Big Stick and the Roosevelt corollary backed it up. And another example of the Roosevelt corollary was in 1902, Venezuela owed money to British, German, and Italians that had previously lived in it when it was a colony. And now that they were their new nation, they owed money. Well, they sent ships over. They were going to block the ports in Venezuela, and Roosevelt said, wait a minute, you probably did not understand. You have to come through us if there's any problem in our hemisphere. And he's going to send down the Great White Fleet. They're going to leave, and Roosevelt will arbitrate a settlement between Venezuela and countries. So Basically, we didn't have to fire a shot, but we did use the big stick. Once again, you see this cartoon. Notice he's holding arbitration. Remember, he arbitrated with the coal miners' strike. He's going to get a Nobel Peace Prize for arbitrating a peace between Japan and Russia. So he is a great arbiter. On the big stick there, he's got the new diplomacy. You can see he's got control here of these Central American countries. He's pushed back England and those European countries that were trying to interfere. And he is the biggest figure there in the room in his police outfit. So again, the Roosevelt corollary, we are responsible for this hemisphere. Other nations stay out. We'll guarantee stability, and we are the police of our hemisphere. Okay, so we've talked about big stick diplomacy. We're going to look at President Taft's dollar diplomacy, and that will change with Wilson, and his is called missionary or moral diplomacy. So when Taft takes power, he said, I'm going to substitute dollars for bullets. Let's concentrate on economic power. So that is his new foreign policy, dollar diplomacy. The first place we look is China. And remember, China is all about trade. And China had been divided up by European nations into something called spheres of influence. And these spheres of influence, basically the Europeans were paying off the warlords, and they were taking the natural resources in these different areas. The empress then was not getting the tribute that she used to get when she had the power over these areas. So this was kind of a tense situation. But we wanted a piece of it. Now we're in the Philippines, we're pretty close to China, and so John Hay, remember Hay? Hay, splendid little war Hay, okay? Hay is going to negotiate, and he is going to propose something called an open door policy. And basically that's just free trade, trading on an even scale, with no country having one advantage over another. And he sends these letters out to these different foreign nations. He claims success, but really it was just an American thing. You can see here on this political cartoon, I'm going to let you look at it for a minute. If you said, yeah, this political cartoon, the symbolism is that the foreign countries have been dividing up China. They've been cutting it into little pieces. And now here comes the United States with an open door policy. And they're kind of looking at them like, why should we trade with you? Another cartoon showing poor China with all of these foreign nations. Now the Empress had a group of people who were proficient in the martial arts, and because of this we called them the boxers. And the boxers are going to try and get rid of all these foreigners that have taken over their land. They start killing missionaries, anybody who's on the outskirts of major cities, and they are unsuccessful getting all of them out. A bunch of the diplomats and foreigners are going to barricade themselves inside the city of Beijing, and they are asking for help. So you can see by this political cartoon how that is going to appeal to volunteers. So the Boxer Rebellion marks the end of dynasty in China, 2,000 years of dynasty. Also, it's the very first time that there's a coalition of foreign powers that joined together to fight in a foreign land. You have France, England, Japan, Germany, and the United States. The Boxers thought they were impervious to bullets. Sadly, they were wrong. Click this and see the recap of Big Stick and Dollar Diplomacy. And now we'll talk about missionary diplomacy. All right, we've talked about Taft's foreign policy, and now when Woodrow Wilson takes power, he's going to switch it, and he's going to change his foreign policy to missionary diplomacy. And basically, missionary diplomacy is moral. Who is the good guy? Who's wearing the white hats? Who is being oppressed, and where do we need to go in to promote democracy and save people? We need to be noble, and we need to be the good. So the first place we go in is Haiti. There's a major revolution. There had been revolution after revolution. They had broken apart from the Dominican Republic, and it got very, very bloody. So Wilson sends in the Marines to cool things down, and basically they keep order, but they do stay for a long time. They're there for about 8 years. Next moral thing we do is during World War I, the Virgin Islands had been owned by Denmark, and they'd been subsidized by Denmark with needed economic aid. Well, during World War I, Denmark lost lots and lots of money, and they needed to give up the islands. So we bought them, and we still have the Virgin Islands, and we bought these for $25 million. In Mexico, they had lots of chaos. They are overthrowing leaders with coups, and we had supported one of the new guys that Pancho Villa did not like. So Villa had been an ally. Now he's angry at the United States. He's going to cross over the border and kill Americans in New Mexico. Then he runs back into Mexico. Well, we have been attacked. And so President Wilson sends troops with the approval of the new leader, a guy named Huerta, into Mexico to chase Pancho. And this is Pancho Villa in the middle. And he is a bandito, but he is also a folk hero in Mexico. So we're after him, but he goes to village, and they aren't telling where he is, because he is seen as a hero to the people. So we send troops to catch him. General John Pershing wants the best troops he can get, and he asks for the 9th and 10th Cavalry. Remember them? They're the Buffalo Soldiers. They've been fighting the Indians. They fought brilliantly in the Spanish-American War, and Pershing is going to get the nickname because of his choice of the troops as Blackjack Pershing. Pancho Villa is never caught, and Pershing is called off the chase because we are going to get into World War I. So just a little review. These are the foreign policies of the 3 presidents: Big Stick with Roosevelt, dollar diplomacy with Taft, and missionary diplomacy with Wilson.